how do you separate, you know, what someone does in their art from like their private life, or like should you even be doing that as a consumer and as someone who's like, working in music? Do you think about
Um,
that yourself?
I think that's kind of like a double-edged coin there. I think as a consumer, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I think as a consumer, it's like it's kind of up to you. Like it's like if you want to have that moral high ground where a
Mm-hmm.
certain artist says or does something and that changes your opinion of wanting to consume their art, appreciate it, whatever, then so be it. Like I don't necessarily agree with that, and I think it's weird though because I think everyone takes like different. They pick and choose. Like no one's like cut and dry. Like oh, I support all people who have done messed up stuff but still
Yeah.
make good art. They usually pick and choose just the people they're a fan of. Like for example, if you take someone like Chris Brown as like a really big example, it's
Yeah.
like a lot of people let that go. Those same people are probably also like 6ix9ine snitched. I'm never talking like I'm
Yeah.
never listening to him again. And it's kind of like, all right, well, it's like they're both, arguably not great people based on things that they've done. And it's just
Yeah.
like, were you more a fan of one than the other? And so it's like I really don't care about that. And it's like I fall into that same category where it's like I think if like I was already a like pretty big fan of what you put out, like art wise, if there's like something shady or whatever, I think that can be separated. And like me personally, I'd probably still listen to that person's music, watch their movies, like whatever, whatever. Um, and obviously there's like kind of a sour taste in your mouth because you like know new information, but I don't think that takes away from like appreciating the art they put out. And I also think it depends a lot on how good what you put out is or was, like I might say, and also like
How bad it, like what you did
yeah,
is.
how bad what you did
Yeah.
is, and also like I think just like general personal demeanor. Like for example, if you take someone like Ti, like Ti made absolute hits. Like the Paper Trail Deluxe album was like
So
arguably
good.
like changed the trajectory of that kind of music, and it's like I'll like there you go. I feel like that like obviously I'm gonna still listen to that and be like, this is awesome. And I also don't think Ti ever put forth like the image that he's like this incredible upstanding citizen that
Yeah.
would never do anything controversial. Like he said controversial
Definitely.
things from early on. He did controversial. He was open about being a like a drug dealer and shit. Like it's
Yeah.
like I don't think like anyone was like surprised when it turned out that Ti wasn't like maybe
The
the most
upstanding
like
citizen.
morally upstanding
Yeah,
guy. Um.
for sure.
So, but I also like I do think there's times where it's like I don't know if you are you still there? I feel like I lost you.
I'm still here.
Right. um.
If I cut
I
out, just don't even worry about it because my internet's really
okay.
bad.
Gotcha. Um. But what I was gonna say is like, for example, I don't know if you watched like there's this kid on YouTube who Andrew Callahan. He did like the Channel 5, like
Yeah.
all that stuff. And it's like I personally really liked his content. But it's like
Yeah.
he took a stance of being like this more like conscious upstand like he took a stance where it's like
Yeah.
he kind of picked the moral high ground in his
Definitely.
mind in most situations. So when
And
like
then
the
when you
stuff
don't live
that
it up to it,
happened
yeah.
exactly. So then when the stuff that happened with him broke, I was a little more like, all right, well, I'm not gonna like consume his stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think it might not be good, but it's kind of like it almost seems like disingenuous at that point. Because then it's
Yeah.
like, oh well, like
Bless you.
Excuse me. It's kind of like you took that position. God damn it. Sorry, I'm
Bless you.
done it. It's kind of like you took that position, like in the media
Yeah.
you put out, and then obviously, yeah, you don't live up to it. It's like, all right, this seems kind of like there's a disconnect there that makes me like not want to consume it. But I think like
For sure.
I don't know. I feel like it's everyone's choice. Like I kind of respect your choice either way. And I
Mm.
think it kind of depends on like how personal you take that situation in terms of
Mm.
not only the artist that does something you don't like, and also how much you don't like what they do. I think in terms of like working with people though, like if you're in the industry, I think like that's a different kind of conversation because like as a fan you have that disconnect where it's like if you're working with people and your name is like attached to theirs in a professional manner, in like a
Mm.
monetary manner, in like, you know, 10 years from now, someone can search their name if they did something horrible and see yours next to it. It's like, that's something I think that's obviously worth taking like more into account. I don't think it's like worth, working with people that you think aren't good people. Like it's like
I
I
agree.
think, and I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, it's like you're not gonna like probably make good art at the end of it. I mean, I think like music is different because it's like it's such a like kind of like intimate personal thing. Like if you're like just working on a song with someone and like building it from the ground up, like a movie, there's like so many more moving parts where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you're making this movie and you might be like, damn it, I don't like what he did, but Kevin Spacey would kill this role. It's like
Yeah.
that's maybe an easier call to make when there's like 100 people plus like on your list of like staff and like people you're working with. Whereas
Yeah, for
like
sure.
in a song, it's like probably like under a dozen people like
Yeah.
that maybe like pop shit. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's weird too because especially in rap, like I feel like there's much more tolerance because of kind of where a lot of artists come from. Like then I don't know, it seems like there's more tolerance from the beginning for like certain kinds of bad behavior. It's kind of like I don't want to say embraced, but it's for sure tolerated, if not like I don't know, maybe even over, you know, over tolerated, some
yeah,
behaviors
I mean,
that
I think it can be like glorified in some cases where it's
yeah.
like, because like I think for some people it almost like lives up to like a lore, like in a sense, like it's like you
Yeah.
think about like someone like KK, it's
Mhm.
like at this point the appeal of KK isn't even one of the like 5 songs he released before he was put in jail for a very long time. But it's like it's the allure of like it's this young kid who did this crazy shit and then
Yeah.
filmed a video about it and went on the run, literally like almost teasing cops like with music videos. It was like what is this kid doing? And
Yeah.
it's like that's almost like the allure I think of like that. And I think yeah, maybe like I also think it's a lot about like general subject matter. It's like, if you think about the songs that someone like Justin Bieber puts out, they're all
Mhm.
about like, I want to love you, baby. I care for you. I appreciate you. Be mine. Our love is so perfect. Like if he then went like on a rampage, like got caught on like TMZ footage leaked of him like absolutely like abusing his wife, it would be kind
Mhm.
of like, whoa, like it's just
Yeah,
like such a stark contrast between
definitely.
the image even just he himself portrays, where I
Mhm.
think it's like I don't know, right or wrong. I don't. I you know I think that's where it gets dicey if this is like actually a good thing or a bad thing. I
Yeah.
do think some people kind of like in their mind it's like because you create an image of these people that you listen to in your head like already, like who you think they are, the kind of like
Yeah.
you know character you make them up to be. And
For
so I
sure. It's
think
that
some
parasocial relationship between like fan and
yeah.
artist.
So I
Yeah.
think then when like if they act mildly within the character of what you've created for them in your mind, you might give otherwise kind of inexcusable behavior a pass.
Mm,
Because they're like, they're not someone you know at that point. They're like this like
definitely.
weird like figure that you've created because
Yeah,
you
there's a weird
listen
disconnect
to them
between the
or
two.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like obviously like it's like if one of your best friends did that same thing, you'd be like, "What the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit!
And then
I
why do
don't
you
think we
think
should hang out anymore." Like,
absolutely like I
yeah,
think it's really weird because you have people that are so quick to defend like the artists that they like regardless of what they do simply because they like the artist, which I think in some cases it's, they're defending them because they're like, well, this isn't that big of a deal and they might be right about it. But sometimes they're defending them and it's just because they like them.
yeah.
And
Well, and I think not to cut you off, but I think that's a lot of it too. Is that it's like
yeah,
in today's culture, it's like you don't want someone to be like you're morally wrong here, like
yeah.
in whatever you say or consume or whatever. Like you don't want to be judged for what you like or
Mm,
say. And so I think it's almost like deflecting. It's like they do something like bad, then their fans rationalize it so they don't get condemned by the people around them being like, "Oh, you still listen to so and so? Didn't they do this?" And it's like, "No, no, no, no. Like it isn't even that bad. Like it wasn't.
yeah.
They had consent. Like, did you see the tweets of the screenshots? Like, it's like you
Yeah.
start like rationalizing it in this weird way where it's like, all right,
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, it's definitely strange. And it's weird to see like almost the hypocrisy of it. Like people are it's really just who they like cuz they'll attack the like artists that they don't like. You look
I
at
do
the whole
the
blue
same shit
blue
though.
face. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
Like,
crazy.
I'll be
Even
like,
with
that
like
guy's
Andrew
a loser.
Tate and like people like that. Like
Yeah,
people just you don't even need to be a musician or artist, just anyone with that kind of public eye.
yeah.
There's going to be people that want to take you down no matter what. And
That
then
guy
there's going
is
to be people
nuts
that
though.
are, yeah, I know.
Like just to clarify, because it's
No,
fucking
I mean, for sure.
psycho.
No, but like even with people like him, like there are going to be people that defend him or attack him
Yeah,
regardless of what he does. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
100%, 100%. Yeah,
but
it's almost like
yeah, it's
at that point, it's like almost like the politician effect, just
for
like
sure.
in like different sized doses based on how big of a celebrity you are. It's like you can get bigger, but then there's gonna be more people that love you and more people that think you're the fucking worst.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, with politicians, it's even, I mean, politicians literally go after like musicians like because of shit that they do. Like it's weird. Like the whole culture is like it's intertwined. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about kind of the longevity of the way that rap is going with like the kind of shenanigans that these kids do? Right. I feel like I don't know. It's kind of escalating to like all time highs. Everyone just kind of trying to one up each other, doing
Yeah,
extreme shit.
I feel like the shenanigans have died down. I feel like
You
peak
think so?
shenanigans. We're talking like true shenanigans. Like I think like peak shenanigans was like I don't know 20 like 14 or 2015 to like 2018 when
Really? You
you
think
had
it's that long ago?
yeah like because like that was when like you that was like in my opinion like when you had like the big like South Florida like boom. You had people like Lil Pump, Smoke Perp, like posting videos of them like having rocket launchers like stuck in their mouths and like shit like that. Like you just had like you know, like, back then was when it was like Lil Pump's label like posted a video of them giving him a birthday cake that was shaped like a giant Xanax bar. Like it was
Wow.
like, it's just like I think it's evolved now in a way where it's like people realized the lack of staying power of coming in that hot, like off the rip. Like it's like, oh, if you're posting pictures of you like in a fucking Miami apartment with, a military grade rocket launcher, it's like you better have some good content to follow it up. And if you don't, like people forget about you and like the shenanigans don't really work anymore. And I think now people are like, especially like TikTok and whatever, I think people are like, they're getting a little more like crafty with it. Like it's less abrasively in your face and more just like mildly infuriating, and then you forget about it. Like it's like
Definitely.
you see like quick, like catchy, like, you know, thumbnails and titles and like this and that. Like it's not just like in your face, like here's a guy with a fucking, like I don't know, like there was a guy Lil Nar who like back in the day he would do like he would like a car would like pull up like a fucking like Ferrari or something would pull up. He was a really good skateboarder, so he would like hop out of the moving Ferrari with like a fucking Uzi and like tray flip and then just like unload rounds into the sky, and you're like, yo, that's sick. And it's like, but I think it's like now it's like people realize that it's like you have to, it's like it's more of a, it's less about that one in your face moment and more about just like a continuous push of content, which I don't know, personally I think it's worse. Like
Yeah.
I find it annoying. Like it's like there's this one artist I like, he teased a song for a really, really long time. I was excited for it to come out. Came out pretty good. I liked it. Didn't blow me away. And now it's like probably like 4 or 5 times a day they're posting different reels that are just clips of like lifestyle shit. Just pictures of like a city that they're in and video of them driving and crap like that.
Yeah.
With the same like 15 seconds of the song, with the text of the lyrics going. And it's just like, I don't know. It just ruins it for me because it's like, I don't,
Yeah.
at that point, it's like, it's not even about the song. It's like just about like, oh, damn, I got to make fucking 7 more reels of this one audio clip to post today so I can, put my tentacles out to grab, the biggest reach of, Instagram
For sure.
users and shit. And it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah. I mean, it
put a
used to be
rocket
like,
launcher in your mouth, man. Like, it's
yeah.
like, fucking really do this marketing shit.
I feel like it used to be solely like just the crazy shock value kind of scenes. And now there's just so much demand for this constant churning of content that a lot of people don't even put like the effort to just do the easy shock value things anymore. Now it's just the content machine, and that's the only
Yeah,
way, because you have to, right? I mean,
yeah,
you have to put this stuff out because there's just so many people competing and so much
yeah,
going to social media and so much. It's just such a massive volume of like stuff that's
yeah,
being put in front of people's faces.
yeah.
And like,
The other
yeah,
option, though, is just making good music and
yeah,
being cool. Like,
yeah,
I think that gets lost sometimes where it's like, I think people that actually would be cool and good if they just focused on doing the music. Because I think like a lot of people had that at one point. Like there's a lot of artists I follow that's like I started following them because I like their music, and then I checked them out on Instagram or whatever, and I was like, this dude seems sick. I want to follow him, whatever, whatever. And then like I think you just saw over the last like 2 3 years, it's like all these people just like people that you thought were in it for different reasons just fall into the content trap. And I think it's like, not that there's anything wrong with that, because I think like, I mean, obviously making content's great. It's like how you're going to get yourself out there. But I do think it's like you, it's just kind of like this innate thing. Like, you know, when it feels forced, like you can just sense it. You're like, this
Yeah.
is forced and not genuine. And at that point, I feel like you lose a good chunk of at least your like more diehard consumer, just because it's
Yeah.
like, you know, the average person probably won't see through that, but someone who's been following you for a long time,
Definitely they
you
will.
know, they will.
Do you think, I feel like you're always kind of really in tune with the new young artists?
I
Like,
feel
you
like
know
I'm
about
not
people,
anymore.
I don't know. I feel like you, I mean, I think you
I do
are.
got one kid though.
So, what are the trends? Like, do you see the trends changing at all? Like when you see what kids are doing, when you see the
Uh,
styles and the flows, because like I feel like at this point I feel ancient when I'm listening to stuff. I'm
yeah,
learning about people a year, 2, 3 years after they blow up.
yeah,
When in college or even high school, I would find out a bit people through music blogs and other stuff,
yeah.
and I'd be ahead of the curve. But are there, what are the trends looking like? Are they changing?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I feel like I'm not like super tapped in enough. Like, I definitely, I like, yeah, like you said, like back in college, I was like really into it. I feel like I could rattle off where I thought, you know, the entire scope of underground rap music was going. But now I'm like not so sure. I mean, there's some trends that like I feel like have start like, I don't know. I just feel like music, like especially rap music, like not like mainstream rap music, but also probably mainstream rap music too, is like in a weird place right now where it's like it feels really like stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Like the people that are the people that would progress that music forward are like seem to be dropping like less and less. And just the way like, I don't know, maybe the algorithms or whatever, like how stuff is set up, a lot of like the same family of music seems to
Mm-hmm.
like rise to the top. Like, you know,
Definitely.
you see a lot of like, you know, even when you think about like the big people in like rap right now, like a little baby or like a little Dirk or Future or like even someone like Drake, it's like everything they're releasing outside of like certain songs and certain projects like here and there, like aren't aren't anything like super new, you know. It just feels like something you would have heard them do before. Even Drake, when he did the one thing to try and be different with like the Honestly Nevermind album, which I actually really like,
Yeah,
it's
me too.
like didn't change like any, like it's not like, not, it didn't really like change the scope of hip hop music and where people were going with it. I don't think and I think the same goes for like the underground. I think it's like you still are seeing people ride that like post Playboy Cardi
Yeah.
whole lot or whole lot red, whole lot of red. I don't even fucking know the album. Whole lot red. I don't know. Like that that sound, the heavy synths, the kind of like yeet adjacent, like, you know, distorted vocals with, you
Yeah.
know, chaotic synth beat. Like you still see a lot of that. I feel like you still see a lot of like the, you know, you know, hyper pop is still like all the same. Like
Yeah.
people like Glaive Breakin still like in that same sound bubble that they've kind of always been in. I don't know. The one thing that like I feel like this year was really like big was the like the Detroit like rap and like Memphis
Mm-hmm.
rap, like that, like kind of like faster, faster tempo with kind of like the dark simple melodies, and the I don't know, like just the drum sounds in it are very like I don't know, unique to that sound, I guess, like
Yeah.
certain like percussion elements. And like I feel like that was a big thing. Like you saw even like really big rappers like that probably would have never hopped on that style of beat, like starting to do that because of people like, like Babyface Ray, like even someone like an SG, like that kind of shit, or ESTG, however you want to say it. I don't know. Like that just whole kind of like subgenre of rap music, I think really blew up in the past year. I don't totally love it. There's parts I really like,
Yeah.
like I think I still love Babytron. I think Babytron is arguably one of the unironically one of the best rappers actually out right now.
Yeah.
I could listen to all his music and like not stop laughing to myself, but also being like that was hard,
Mhm.
which I think is unique. Um, but no, I don't know about like what the future trends are. It just feels like kind of like stale. I think like I don't know. I feel like it's gonna eventually just go back to melodic rap again. It's gonna go
Yeah.
back to a more updated sound from what like earlier 2000s were with
Yeah,
like
I feel like it was always kind of slowly converging with like simple pop in a way. Like
mm-hmm,
if you look at hip hop and those early 2000s, a lot of those songs that were
we're
considered
pop
rap,
songs.
they were pop songs. Like that's
Yeah,
like
they're Billboard hits.
yeah, exactly. And I think that it kind of went away from that for a little while when people kind of got excited about a lot of new sounds. And now, like you said, it's kind of the new sounds are becoming stale, or what, was new,
Yeah,
6, 7 years ago is now stale. But I don't know. I feel like it'll be interesting to see how those kind of more, I don't want to call it mumble rap, but like you could like just consider it less, I don't know, less identifiable words, right? How that will kind of make its way into pop, because that's one of the things that you haven't, or at least I haven't seen too much of yet, where like you have those influences kind of
yeah,
infiltrating like the Billboard, and obviously it's infiltrating the Billboard, but like the pop side of Billboard, I think that'll be interesting to see.
for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing, and I think you saw. I mean, this is gonna be such a corny reference, but I think like I can almost see like music going more in a route of like I don't know if you've probably heard the song Broadway Girls with Morgan Wallen and Lil Durk.
Mm,
Like
yeah,
it's like I could see like music going like more that route, which again
yeah,
reminds me kind of like earlier 2000s where it's like the rap verse isn't anything like crazy, has some like cool lines, catchy melody, hook obviously very catchy, maybe done by more of a pop adjacent like artist.
artist, yeah,
Um, and I could see it like coming back around to that, and I think I would be excited for that because like I think there's a lot of potential in that. I think it's like
I agree.
so why wouldn't like Lil Baby be making a song with like Kaylani like right now? It's
Yeah,
like that would
yeah,
him. It's like I don't know. There's like things like that where it's like I don't know. He rapped over like a different sample flip of the pound cake
oh
sample
yeah,
from Drake. It's like, dude, if
yeah,
you're gonna do like an R&B type thing with like that sort of like vibe, it's like get an R&B person in the
yeah,
studio with you to make the track. Like it's like this would have not that like I love that song. It's a fire song, but it's like I feel like that gap hasn't necessarily been bridged. It's still just
yeah.
like
It's people
producers
are like kind of
just
dabbling a little bit, but no one's really tapped in for sure.
yeah. And why I also think like everyone is to blame for that. Like I think it's like social media, it's the record labels, it's the artists. it's the producer, and it's the actually it's probably not even the fans, but it's
Yeah.
like you know social media. It's like if I post this one snippet of my song that gets some traction, I repost that again. It's like it's gonna get more views again, and this and that. It's like
Mm.
I don't know. You see people reusing the same formula for views. You see record labels reusing the same formula for like another like it. I think it's sad to see an artist like who has a lot of potential like put out like an album that like hits Billboard but like doesn't go as far as it should have, and then the next album is just like a like second tier carbon copy of that album does the same thing, and it's like, well, where's the growth there? And I think like labels kind of like feed into that a lot, being like, nah, this is the sound you should go for. I think artists are at fault a lot by being like the number of times artists will be like, bro, like this is the vibe I'm on, like send me these kinds of beats or whatever. And then like
Yeah.
I need some different shit. And then the very next song they release sounds exactly like the last one. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
bro, it's
Like
like
you don't
you're
even want different things. Like you're literally just
or it's like
asking
you
for
think
the
you
same
do,
old.
yeah, you think you do, but like at the end of the day, you're kind of wasting everyone's time
Yeah.
because deep down the label or whoever around you is gonna be like, nah, put out the one that sounds like fucking
Yeah.
like, hey, little baby, put out the 45th rendition of the
Yeah.
freestyle song. It's
So
like
true. And it's
but
like it's probably also like, you send someone, I mean, let's say you send someone a pack of like 50 beats. They like will subconsciously pick the same beat that they've already basically rapped on because they're number one, they're used to it, they're comfortable with it.
yeah,
Like they associate it with success and like everyone around them does too. So then they kind of get stuck in that loop of doing that even though they may if they sat down and really thought about it, maybe they would want to do something different new, but
yeah,
it's kind of like everything, like you said, everything that's around them is kind of like encouraging them to do the same old
yeah.
formula, you know?
And I think that's why like producers are at fault too, because it's like unless you're like really, really locked in with someone and you get to like hang out with them a lot, understand like their musical taste, what they listen to and like want to go for, or like at the very least, even if you don't do that, if you can just get the opportunity to like be one on one with them and like have the conversation about like what what they want to make, what kind of beats they want. Like if you don't have the opportunity to like have that conversation, it's like you're kind of screwed. You're gonna send exactly what they have been making because you
Yeah.
want to try and get them on your beat.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna send a fucking Ed Sheeran beat to you know Kodak because
He'd probably kill it though.
he probably would. He probably
That'd be
would. But like,
hard.
yeah, but it's like you don't want to do that because like you
Yeah.
want to get the Kodak placement, and so
Yeah.
it's like I think it's like tough because there's so many producers now, and so many of them are just sending beats through email, through DMs. I mean myself included, and so I think it makes it tough because it's like in your mind you might have a vision for like what you think this artist could hop on. Like it's like there's been times when like there's an artist that or artists that I've like reached out to where it's like I know they probably just want guitar, poppy, alt rock ish, basically like more calm MGK adjacent type shit,
Yeah.
and I'll like put a pack of like 18 of those, and then like the last two will just be some like really obnoxious like hyper pop like shit. Because in my mind, I'm like, maybe today
Yeah.
they hear that and they're like, I might,
Yeah.
I might try it, and that could be cool. And so I think it's like, it's tough though, because you can't like obviously like solely dictate what you send someone based on what you want them to be on, because obviously
True.
you're biased. It's like you're gonna just otherwise you would just send your favorite beats all the time. And
Yeah. That's very true. Speaking of what you want, is there a collab or like a musician or just like, some kind of track that you would really want to see done?
just in general,
Yeah, like
not
I
even
don't
be a
know.
part of, just like something that I would like to see done.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
For example, like
I mean,
A Drake song that's in the style of like singer songwriter Ed Sheeran, or just I don't know, something
huh.
that you've always. Is there anything that comes to mind when you're like, damn, I really wish an artist or this artist, this specific artist, would do this, or it could even be like a you know a collab between two artists that you would always want to see.
Huh. Damn, I've never really thought of that. But immediately, for some reason, the first thing that comes to mind is I want Frank Ocean to, under just an alter ego, just with no announcement of who he is, release just like a lo-fi mixtape featuring just like soft background vocals of like,
With like Joji.
yeah, like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, just like soft lo-fi beats with him like singing, probably not even full songs over, just like little
Yeah.
random spurts of words and vocal
He's
riffs.
so talented.
I would listen to that over and over.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. I feel like I feel like I, I know we
The
mentioned
wheels are
it.
spinning.
I was kind of joking about it before, but it's like if Kodak Black made like a pop album,
Yeah.
that would be sick.
I actually really like him. I think
I
like
think he just
he's
has
one
a
of the
really
artists that has potential to break boundaries just cuz I don't know, I his
his
sound is like
voice.
really obnoxious,
He
but
has
his
a
voice is
very
also really
cool voice.
good.
He has a very
Yeah.
unique voice that's like you wouldn't think it could be melodic, and then
But it
you hear him
is.
on certain songs, and you're
Yeah.
like, that's really catchy.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's offbeat a little bit, but it's not offbeat to the point where it's not palatable. Like you have a
yeah,
lot of rap that like it's like trying to be offbeat for the sake of offbeat, and like the only way it's palatable is if you like totally get into the genre and like appreciate that kind of music. But I feel
yeah,
like Kodak, he kind of rides an in between area where he's a little bit lagged, but he's not so far lagged that you're like you know
yeah. That's actually the other thing. This is gonna be my last one, but based on just making like dumb remixes and stuff, like one of my favorite things to do before was to take really any rapper, but especially like one that had no right being on that kind of beat and putting them on like a very soft, like acoustic guitar, like indie beat.
yeah
Um, and I think it's like, it's funny because as soon as you do that, you realize it's like, damn, half of these lyrical rappers like aren't actually that lyrical. They just rap over softer beats. So you expect them to be saying like meaningful shit. Like it's
hmm
like I put like, Babytron on like an indie pop beat or like ESTG on like a indie pop beat or something. And it's like I don't know. I feel like that could be fun. Like if artists like embrace that a little more, like if they took, you know, because they wouldn't have to really even change anything different. I think it's like
yeah
I think a lot of people I think the fun part about making something like those like stupid remixes is you can see the potential of just taking vocals from a project with a completely different intention and putting it on something else. And I don't think that's necessarily utilized enough. I think
yeah
like a lot of people when they record, they're obviously recording over a certain beat, but I don't think they necessarily, and I know some people do this. Like I know, like for example, like Internet Money kind of did this a lot with their last album, where like they would record a song, then almost like completely scrap
yeah
like
scrap the instro. Yeah.
90% of that beat and kind of remix. And so it's like, and I think that again has a lot of potential. Like you see how big of a song like Lemonade was, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily that may have been what they did with that beat, but I know there was like a million different versions of that song before they chose that one to be the one that gets released. So I
Yeah.
think it's like there's definitely like something to be said for like sometimes just like
Vocals first also.
yeah, or just like get the idea of your song down and then just like
hmm
start fucking around with it in ways that you like didn't probably wouldn't have, and like see where it
Yeah.
goes, because maybe it like makes unlocks this kind of like new sound for you that's like that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you mention it because, well, number one, like that's how I first got like started making like music, doing any
Yeah.
kind of music production was by literally like taking a, a cappella that I found on YouTube or whatever and ripping it and then
Yeah.
building a whole new song around it. Like that's I think a great way number one for people to learn about production, but also I think it's a better way to get better at production because you learn how to work with different vocals and create space in the mix, which when you're making a beat for an artist or an instrumental, a lot of times it's easy to forget that there's going to be a vocalist there, so you may not carve out the sound like you should. So I think it's really useful as a producer, but also what I was going to say is I know that there's a few of the artists, and I found out about this way later, that a few of the artists that I really respect their production, they actually do exactly what you were saying, which is they'll they'll have a instrumental that they'll send to a vocalist that's super rough or just, maybe it's just chords or, piano or whatever. And they'll
Yeah.
have the artist record the song or the rap or whatever around it, have the vocals sent back, and then completely build the song. I know Flume does that. I know a few other like electronic artists for sure do that. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a really good way to work, not just in electronic, but in general, because
100%.
like the vocal is the central piece of the song. Like it has to be number one. And I think like unfortunately, like the relationship that artists have with producers, a lot of times nowadays, like there isn't that relationship between the two.
Yeah.
Like you'll
I
have
think
like
that's
someone
the tough
buys a
part.
beat. Yeah. They'll buy a beat from someone or they'll do something else, which makes everything extremely accessible because then you
Yeah.
can much more easily create the, connections. But then when it comes to time to like going back into the song or kind of remaking something that's more cohesive, I think it's better to do like what you said, to kind of like rework the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I feel like, why you see something like pop music not only takes so long for those songs and albums to come out, but also it's like that's why it's as successful it is as it is. It's like there's like real thought, you know. I mean, I can't speak for all, like everything, but it's like I feel like, you know, you hear those stories of there being like fucking like 30 versions of, you know, this pop song before they decided to be like, all right, we're going with this one, where they like, we restructure this, we bring in this backup person to do this riff, or, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for like really taking your time to like toy around with something. And I think you're right. Like, when working around vocals is like a really good way to like make yourself better, because I think you on sometimes I feel like, at least for me, just because I'm not like super like, I mean, not really, not at all, I have no music theory training, so it's like it's sometimes hard to like forget, or it's like you forget that it's like just because something's in key doesn't mean it works together.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of other factors that play into if something sounds good together. And so it's like when you build around vocals, you can kind of be like, all right, well, in theory, this chord progression should sound good. And
Mm.
it does by itself. And then the vocals overlaid on top of it, and it sounds like trash. So then you have to fuck with one of the chords or whatever until like it follows the same vibe and cadence and like
Mm.
feel of the vocal. And I think that's like something that, again, is like something that can really be learned from, because it like forces you to almost like think outside the box a little bit more. You're like, all right, I can't just choose this cookie cutter like chord progression that I know is gonna sound good, because it might not with the way this person's singing over it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
And
one area where like music theory, it helps a lot of times, but it doesn't completely kind of, fill the picture because you can have like the vocals and you can have a chord progression that like theory wise is perfect for it, but like maybe the lyrics of the sound or like the lyrics of the song and kind of the melody, it's kind of wanting something else and of itself, or maybe it wants to have a chord that, is, contrary, right, to give some kind of separation, or,
Yeah,
uh, but yeah, I think, the relationship between kind of production and music theory and like vocalists and like how beats are made, like the whole thing, it's very compartmentalized, and not enough people kind of think about it more as like a cohesive thing. And I think
yeah,
if you think about it as a cohesive thing, you know, I feel like the production's better and the song's better. And sometimes it's just difficult to do that because maybe you don't have the artist with you when you want to
yeah. A lot of
record
people just don't
something.
have the access. I
Yeah.
feel like it boils down to like the people that do go that route are the people that like are holed up with a few producers that they really
Yeah.
like. You know, they take a long time to release their music, and it's like the people that are working with them have a very like rare access that most people don't. And I think, you know, a good chunk of other artists, you know, rappers and singers and whatever, just like if they're not that big, they're not going to want to like let you do that with their music. Like
Yeah.
they have what they think is their vision for their music, and it's like unless you're, you know, a fucking multi-platinum
Yeah.
Grammy nom and you're hitting them up when they're small and they're trusting you, I think majority of artists aren't going to have that trust in just like a random producer they meet off like Instagram DMs or whatever to be like, all right, well, like, yeah, I'm going to record on this fucking four chord progression you've sent me, and
Hmm.
then you're going to rework the whole song from there. And then, you know, it's just a lot of trust to put into someone, I think, with your art. And I think a lot of artists either don't have that, probably rightly so, because of the producers they're getting hit up by. And I think a lot of producers that maybe are actually talented enough to like work that way with an artist probably don't have that access unless they already have, you know, a really big name to themselves.
Definitely. Speaking of access, I just the other day I watched, I don't know if it was a podcast or maybe it was just a snippet of a live stream or something of Kenny Beats talking about having access to a studio, and how like having a studio or having a space that someone can record is like a huge asset, if not the number one asset for a producer to have, because
Yeah,
it brings artists to you. You can then build relationships, and do all sorts of other in person things. Re-record, give free studio time to someone in return for something else. It gives you a lot of options. So
yeah,
what's your take on like kind of that whole kind of exchange that goes on when now you're having more and more stuff kind of online where you'll never even meet someone who you're working with? Like I recently just basically finished up a track with, the vocalist is from London, right? So we're
mm,
talking about like not only like have I never met her, right, in person, but
yeah,
it's thousands of miles away. Like the
yeah,
studio wouldn't have helped that relationship at all, but
yeah,
undoubtedly what I would have liked, to get in the studio,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I don't know, there's this weird kind of separation that I feel like is being built with all the
for
tools that we
sure.
have online.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone like Kenny Beats is like kind of an interesting example because it's like I love his shit, and I think like what he preaches is like very useful to young producers, and I think just very good advice in general. I think he's very genuine about like the advice he gives out on stream and everything, and I don't think he's wrong that like that studio helped him massively become like what he is now. But I do think that's kind of like there's like an underbelly to that response where it's like, well, you know, you were the massively touring DJ duo of Loud Pack for years. Like you did
Yeah.
produce for like Schoolboy Q, Danny Brown, Kendrick. Like he produced for TDE basically back in high school. It's like not
Mm,
that like that holds weight then like moving forward, but there is like you have a leg to stand on when like you
definitely.
already have like that, resume of work under your belt. It's like you're a Berkeley trained musician. It's like you have the track record and stuff to get a studio and know deep down, even if it doesn't work out immediately, that it's like I'm gonna be able to bring people here.
Yeah.
And I think you know obviously I don't know what his financial situation was when he started, but it's like he talks like the cave is like an absolute shithole, but it's like I've been to some studios here in Philly. It's like the cave is paradise
Yeah,
compared to some studios here.
definitely.
And so I don't know. I think it's like it's very good advice, but I think it's like good advice only if you're gonna really commit to doing it right. I think there's a lot of people that wherever they are like, I'm gonna just open a studio and these rappers are gonna come to me and I'm gonna start working with all of these people and blah 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 blah. And for some people that works, but it's like you open a shitty studio or even a half decent studio and you don't get fucking anyone to come, it's like, bro, that's not helping you at all. Like now you're paying
Yeah,
rent. Like now you're
yeah.
paying rent on
Now
a
you're in the
building.
hole.
Yeah, yeah. Now you're fucking yourself actually. And so
Yeah,
it's like, I think it's like it could be really bad advice if
yeah,
like if you're not doing it right. But it's like, yeah, if you have the money and connections and the trust in yourself to be like based on the connections and my skill that I could open a studio in LA for 3 months without getting paid and just building connections and you commit to that, like, yeah, obviously that's going to help you,
yeah.
if you're
There's
like,
this weird, there's this weird relationship that you see between kind of people looking for advice and people giving advice, where the people who are looking for advice are almost always naturally, unsuccessful in that venture, and the people
yeah,
giving advice are almost always successful, or, relatively successful in that venture.
yeah,
And what's weird about it is that,
makes sense.
you know,
You won't want to take advice from someone that fucking
yeah,
sucked at what they did.
no, for sure. But I feel like what, 100%. But one of the issues that I see is, someone could be successful for a whole host of reasons, and it's really hard to get like the full picture when someone
Yeah,
gives like one piece of advice. Like you said, maybe someone says, "Oh, a studio is the biggest asset," which I happen to think is there's definitely like a really good point to that. But like you said, you know, they could have had resources to enable that to happen, or they could have already had people knocking on the door saying, "Do you have a place that we could stop by?" Right? And
yeah,
so, there's always, whenever you get advice from someone, I think it's important to kind of take it in the context that that
yeah,
person was able to achieve success.
yeah. I think it's kind of like one of those situations where it's like, well, yeah, that works for you, and it's like, and it probably will work for other people, but it's like, you know, if Kenny Beats tells his stream to go open a studio and this and that because it's the best thing he ever did. It's like if 100 people do that, it's like maybe like
98 fail.
maybe like five actually like see his rewards and then are like, oh shit, that did work, and then tell their fan base the same
That was the
thing. And
best,
it's like,
yeah, best advice I ever got. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so it's like, well, yeah, it's the advice that worked for you, but I think it's about almost like shotgun approaching the advice you get because it's like if
Hmm.
you try a bunch of different things, like something's got to work, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, if
Yeah, I
not,
think that, yeah, that's
then
definitely, I mean, that's true, right?
yeah. I mean,
It's, yeah, it's one of those things.
I'm not
It's,
one to talk, but
yeah. I mean, it's like when someone says like, "Oh, just work hard," like hard work pays off. Like it's just like blatantly statistically not really that true.
But yeah,
Like
well, it's
the
also
amount of
it's
people
like
that work hard and have nothing to show for it
yeah,
is
it's like
just
hard
so
work
much more than
with
the amount of people
direction.
that work hard that don't
Yeah,
have anything to show for it.
yeah. And I think that was actually something that I mentioned in one of the things I like wrote in on like the sheet before was that was like I do think though there are a lot of people that are like convince themselves they're working hard or convince themselves they're working like as hard as they can.
Hmm.
And like I feel like I've been that way a number of times. And it's like you're like, oh, why isn't stuff working out for me? And then you're like, well, you know, anyone from an outside perspective could look at you and be like, well, you don't do X, Y, and Z, and so that's probably why. And you're just like, no, I'm working hard.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people are kind of like blind to being like, no, like like they either are like, no, I really am that good. I don't need to work that hard, or like they genuinely do think they're actually working that hard, and they just don't realize that it's like there's kind of I don't know. I hate to be like there's levels to it, but I feel like that's like
No,
very
there
true.
are.
Like it's like
Yeah.
going back to kind of like the thing that we talked about last time with someone like Kyle Beats is that it's
Yeah.
like you know it's like yeah it's like he and again Kyle Beats don't come after me if you somehow see this but it's like
Clip it
yeah
and chip it.
yeah but it's like I remember it's like in a video he was just like saying how he basically made like one beat and would be like the video he made and then he would like edit that video whatever and then boil it down to the fact that maybe he made like 5 beats a week or whatever and like I'm sure he makes more now but like this was years ago when he was blowing up and I think it was like Cody with Internet Money was like what he make like 5 beats a week and he was just kind of like yeah, I mean, I'm editing all these videos and stuff, which is like totally valid, but it's like there are levels to it, and you see it in the music. Like it's like that's why even despite having put out content for I think as long as he has, and being pretty good, obviously at what he does based on his success, it's like you don't see Kyle doing the level of songs that like those Internet Money dudes that are
Yeah.
sweatshopping 100 beats a day over there
Yeah, I mean he also
putting
just like
out.
doesn't have the same, I don't want to call it caliber, but like caliber of placements. Like just like
Yeah,
it's just a reality of like the portfolio, which,
yeah,
you know,
and I
it
also
probably could be attributed to like the fact that, he focuses on content creation. Like
exactly. I
at
do
the end
think
of the day, that's what he does.
exactly. I do think it also is like a kind of like personal career trajectory like type
Definitely.
thing where it's like he just chose a different route that he saw as probably more rewarding for him, maybe more
Yeah.
lucrative, however you want to see it. But it's like I do also think it does show in the music regardless because it's
Yeah.
like you know even if like he went that same content creation route it's like at the end of the day in my opinion still not making the same caliber of music like
Yeah.
you know
That being said though, like if you're going to have the quality of content creation and you're doing that yourself, I think that it's really hard. I don't even know if it's possible to, you know, be able to create super, super high content yourself and also super, super high quality music just because there's not really enough time like in the day to get good at both skills and like tune in your
yeah
craft. Like you're gonna have to fill holes in your production or you're gonna have to fill holes in your video editing or like you're gonna have to fill holes in whatever you're doing, your YouTube, grind, whatever it is. And like
yeah
as a musician, there's already like so much like for myself, for example, like maybe I realize my drums are trash. So like for the past, like such and such time, work on trying to make my drums less trash.
yeah
And, you know, like that's without focusing on, any other thing really.
Yeah.
And I still have so much to do. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of times, as a creator, like you do have to decide kind of where you fit in the whole picture. Cause like
Yeah.
maybe your trajectory, like you said, like maybe your trajectory is not like Taz Taylor, like, managing something, or like Nick and
Yeah.
like putting out crazy amount of beats. Like maybe your trajectory is like doing super, super high quality videos on YouTube that
Yeah.
like
No.
motivate other people. And like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
And
a weird,
there's room for each, obviously, because
yeah,
all of those guys are successful doing their own little niche, and I think that's probably like the best thing to take away is that it's like there's no kind of like right recipe. I feel like,
yeah,
um, and I think yeah, you also see it's a matter of kind of like allocating. I mean, I think the other thing that I've taken away is that it's like you really can't like do it yourself. It seems like
yeah,
obviously there are people that do, but it's like you know like you said, it's kind of about like finding what you're good at, finding kind of like the piece of the puzzle that you fit into, and kind of like really doing really well in that position. It's kind of like just being in like any job. It's just like
yeah,
you have your position. If you do it well, like the whole thing's gonna succeed. And I think I don't know, like I think a good example of that is someone like Rio on like Internet Money. Like he makes a billion beats like every day, and it's like he's tried to do the YouTube thing for like a while, where it's like he would grind out vlogs or like videos here and there, and it's like he would always like kind of like have a spurt with it, and then he would kind of like fall back for a while because he was just like in placement mode, trying to like make a billion beats a day for all these different artists. Um, and it in watching his content, it seemed like over the past like year, probably like a year ago, he basically was like, you know what, like I just need to have a video guy. Like it's like if I'm gonna try and make YouTube content, I need someone like helping me make these videos.
mm,
And so I think now he has someone that helps him make those. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like that's the case. Um, and it's like he can focus on making a billion beats a day, or coming up with an idea to for that video for that day, and doesn't have to worry about setting up the camera and lighting and editing it and scheduling the upload and like all that crap. And so I think like it really is about kind of like finding the role that you play best, and then like being willing to allocate responsibility to like other people.
yeah. I think also like something that I've learned personally, like in my own kind of journey in this like content, like music, art kind of journey or whatever you want to call it. It's like there's areas where you can kind of sit down and force yourself to make that content or like do that work, whether it's music or something else. And then there's areas that you kind of have to be in the right headspace to make
Yeah,
something good. Like for me personally, something I've realized is to make really good music, like I can bump out a track in a day, but like that day can't be forced. Like it's
yeah,
very difficult for me to sit down, especially with the kind of music that I make. I feel like it's so just kind of weird in general that like
yeah,
I kind of have to be exactly where I need to be. Whereas if I'm doing the podcast or I'm editing a video or I'm, doing whatever else, like to me it's just kind of, the podcast is just like a conversation which I love to have. So to me it doesn't even feel like work because it's like I get to talk
yeah,
with cool people and like, you know,
yeah,
that doesn't even seem like work. It's just like a schedule. And then
yeah,
the other stuff is kind of more like just like a day job kind of thing where like, you like bang it out and it's kind of just like a task, you do the task at hand. It doesn't interfere with like my creative process at all. And
yeah,
so I don't know, I've kind of learned that it's really important to kind of know where to put your effort and know kind of what you need to creatively succeed because
yeah,
sometimes the things that you need to creatively succeed the most are space, from something,
Yeah.
or, focusing on the right things, or, a lot of times people underestimate how much relationships matter, because you may be much more happy creating with another person than if you're
Yeah.
doing it by yourself. So maybe instead of, for example, for me, instead of, doing 5 songs or whatever, working on 5 songs, I'll, spend basically 4 songs worth trying to find people that I'd like to work with, or reaching out to people I'd like to work with, trying to
Yeah.
like make the connection, or, seeing if someone wants to come on the podcast and like doing something like that. And
Yeah.
then, do the 1 song worth of, production, and then feel like I feel much more, I don't know, accomplished at the end of the day. And
100%.
also, I feel like the work itself is at a higher quality. Like it's just a
Yeah.
better caliber of, production at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance. It's like you have to have the stuff that sometimes feels like almost like busy work to
Mm,
like get that like personal reward of like I checked that off my list. Because
yeah.
it's like personally it's like funny. It's like there's like almost like nothing to me, nothing worse than the feeling of like staying up until like 3 a.m. one night, like making as many beats and melodies as like I can, and then like listening back through all of them until like I literally am like, oh fuck, I like have to go to bed. And
Mm,
then being hype on everything I made, going to bed, waking up the next morning, feeling like absolute shit because I went to bed at 4 a.m. and then being like going to my files on my phone and being like, these are cool, but it's like I didn't even send these to anyone. Like I didn't like. It's just like I feel physically terrible just for the fact that like I like committed so much time to like making all of these, and they're just sitting on a hard drive. They're not like doing anything. And in the moment, I was so proud for being like, oh fuck, I made all these today. This is so sick. And it's like, well, there has to be a balance. It's like you can't just make like a billion a billion melodies and be like, damn, these are all sick, and then do
yeah.
nothing with them, and then wake up 4 hours later, and be like, damn, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was really going with that story. It was just a little anecdote.
No, like 100%. Do you think that there's like a reason why musicians and like, I don't know, you see it in people who work like programming shit too. Like, I don't know, these kind of introverted people, why do we always like stay up super late working on shit
I think it's like,
instead of like waking up at, 4 in the morning and going hard then?
um, I think it's like that's actually a good question. I think it's kind of like it's like your time type thing. I think it's like hard. I don't know though. It really depends though, because there are some days where it's like it's noon on like a Saturday, and I'm like in the zone, like making music. So I
That's
don't know,
true.
but I do think it's like in general. I think sometimes it feels like it's slower. It's like everything's moving slower. You don't have as much to like. There's no like rigid agenda maybe. Um, and I mean, granted, this is coming from someone who like does have a day job and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like I do have other stuff most days that I
Yeah.
can't just be working on music. But it's like I do think there's something to be said for like having that ability to like kind of turn off everything else. And I think, if I was an artist that worked full time doing that, I think it's the kind of thing where it's like, I don't know, you got, probably managers and people DMing you, and you also have day to day shit like getting groceries,
Mm,
going on a walk, walking your dog, like whatever it is. Maybe you have a relationship, like whatever it is that you have commitments for. I think it's like when it gets to be like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. It's like all those commitments shut off. It's like, unless something's wrong, it's like, your girlfriend, your wife is not like texting you at
Yeah.
3 a.m. It's like your manager isn't going to call you at 2 a.m. asking you to do some interview or whatever next week. Like, I think it's like,
Unless you're a little baby and you fucked up again.
right. But I do think that it's like one of those things where everything else has already shut off for other people by that time. Whereas, like, again, this is coming from someone who isn't a full-time musician, but
Yeah.
if I was, I could see why that time would like feel easier to create in, because it's like you do just have less distractions. Like, your options at that point are go to bed, like watch a movie, or make music. And so it's like,
Yeah.
I think it's easier to kind of focus on. But
Definitely. All right, one more thing I have to ask, and that is about kind of the relationship between music and fashion. And
all
like
right,
in
yeah,
the news, Pharrell
yeah,
maybe getting LV. Um, I know that in the past you had like Virgil, right, and
hmm,
Kanye. Kind of there's a little bit of a, I don't want to say rivalry there, but like
yeah,
a little bit of one over kind of the responsibilities and the trajectory of kind of becoming the fashion icon.
yeah,
Um, so what makes like hip hop and fashion so intertwined and connected? Like it seems to me like all the icons of, the real icons
yeah,
are, everyone's looking towards them to be kind of the face or the designers, of
yeah.
today's age.
I don't know. I think it's like, I think it took a while for hip hop, fashion, or culture, or whatever you want to call it, to be like accepted as like widely like mainstream. I think like when you look back to like the earlier 2000s, people like Lil Wayne wearing like the huge oversized stuff. It's like
Oh, it's
even
awful.
back then, yeah, but it's like even back then it was like, you had like basically just like old white people being like, what the hell are they wearing? You know what I mean? And
Well,
so
let's
it's
be
like,
honest, they're still saying that.
sure, the old white people are still saying that, but I think it's like the old white people's kids are now like more vocal about, what they like, and the people they follow and the content they consume. And I think, it's one of those things where it's just like, I also think people are like more accepting a little bit now. I think there's just like, I don't know, like a little bit more like of a freedom to kind of like explore different avenues in fashion and in clothing and in what you want to wear and how you want to portray yourself. And I think, also think people just kind of like saw how well it did. And it's like surprising that it took that long. Like, it's like you would think when, you see like a brand like Nike getting the amount of, you know, money that they did from partnering with Jordan, or
Yeah.
hell, I mean, even fucking Iverson and Reebok partnering with them.
Yeah, true.
It's like those were, not that there weren't hip hop icons in culture back then, but it's like basketball was, way bigger than hip hop
Yeah.
mainstream back then. And it's like those were like the cultural like hip icons. They were like not just basketball players. They were like, you saw them in commercials, you saw them in, you know, cool outfits on red carpet events, like shit like that. And I think that's what you see now, especially with like social media. It's like, see someone like fucking Jack Harlow doing like a KFC commercial and like whatever. And I think it just kind of like, it reinforces that feeling that's like, all right, these aren't just rappers. Like, they're actual kind of like icons or
Yeah.
figures that like people look up to for a multitude of reasons beyond maybe just their music. Maybe like also like they like the way they dress or this or that. And
Yeah, when you say
Yeah.
that, I'm kind of realizing that like the whole kind of trajectory has, it's changed. At first, you had a company who would go to an artist and they would want basically to advertise by using that artist's reach. And that still happens, right? You'll have artists and famous people, they're sent, you know, free clothing and, all sorts of stuff to wear. And they're paid to wear things. And, you know, I think after a while, artists and celebrities in general started to see that these brands highly value them wearing it because they're the walking advertisement. They're the ones
Oh,
getting people to
100%.
buy
Yeah.
things. And then after they started realizing that, they started doing full deals with the brands like Jordan, one of the first
Yeah.
to do like a huge deal like as a you know icon like that. And then uh you have people like Kanye that kind of branch out and try to like make their own brands. And now you have like content creators, like you have Mr. Beast making like burgers and like,
Yeah.
snacks and all sorts of other things. And so I think you're seeing all these content creators and musicians and celebrities kind of realizing that, they're, you could call it influencer status has awarded them like such a huge control over the advertising market that instead of going like to the brands to have
Yeah.
deals, sometimes they're even like creating their own brands. And
Yeah.
because people are looking to them, like no one's, who's the head of Versace right now. Like, it used to be Versace, but now I couldn't even tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's I think part of the reason I'm realizing as we're talking about it. That's probably why like LV is like wanting to pull someone from the hip hop world, like to spearhead that
Yeah.
status because it doesn't even matter if you can design, right? Like you're probably gonna have a team of designers designing it for you
Yeah. So
anyway.
you're just a creative director.
Yeah, you're just a creative director picking out maybe what you like from, a bunch of different things that were
Yeah.
already pre-picked by,
Yeah.
like a panel of, people picking things. And so, like, you're probably a creative director of the creative directors. Um,
Yeah.
People talk like, there's the whole thing about Yeezy and like, did Kanye even like design the shoes and like how much like control does someone like that even have,
Yeah.
when they're seen as like the designer? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, they probably don't even really design that much, but at the end of the day, their name is really what's creating that demand for the product. And then
100%.
if you combine that with something that has a good design or,
Yeah.
something that's a little bit more edgy or whatever it is that can gain the traction, it's a
Yeah.
really good pairing often.
100%. I also think like in terms of like Louis Vuitton that like Pharrell just seems like a natural successor to someone like Virgil. Like it's like you saw the growth that that company had under someone like like it was like not that like obviously Louis Vuitton was like ever like not popular, but it's like
Yeah.
they've had moments where they kind of like sunk out of mainstream popularity, and you really saw with Virgil like coming in as a creative director the impact that had on, because you have to think it's like it's beyond just rappers. It's like fucking like NBA players and like
Yeah.
shit like that. Like it's like it's social media influencers. It's like all these people that, and I think that's like something else that gets lost is that it's like it's funny to think that it's like, oh, these influencers are like dictating like everyone's style these days. It's like I think also the influencers are dictating each other's style. Like you see
Mm-hmm.
even with like I don't know if you've seen like the fucking big red boots,
Oh yeah.
the last, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like every rapper had to have them. Like why? Just because you saw someone else wearing them? It's like I know you don't think those look good. It's like,
Yeah.
but you're wearing them, so it's like you're the one wearing the big red boots, and it's like you see it with other brands. Like, bro, I never even heard of Marnie before. Never heard of Marnie, and then some rapper says Marnie on me, and now every rapper is like posting pictures of them in a furry
Yeah.
fucking blue or lime green, like Marnie sweater, like slippers. It's like, I think they influence each other a lot, and that kind of like goes unsaid. Um, but I do think it's like, yeah, like when someone cool or someone you genuinely respect like is involved in the creative process, like you're going to be drawn to that a little bit more. And I think that's what kind of like a brand like Louis Vuitton figured out. Like they were like, oh, like no one gives a shit if Marc Jacobs is our designer or whatever. It's like people care if it's like someone they know and respect and think is cool. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't hear like any rapper being like, yeah, Marc Jacobs is a cool guy, or whatever 50-year-old running like Givenchy is like
Yeah.
actually that I think Givenchy got someone cool because I think the rappers fuck with them, but
Yeah.
whatever. But you know what I
Wiz
mean?
Khalifa.
Yeah, no, I think they got. I don't know. They got whatever. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's like there is something to be said for being like, no, let's just get someone cool and respected and stylish themselves to be
Yeah.
the face of this. Like, obviously, like Pharrell is slick as fuck. It's like
Yeah.
you don't think he's gonna come up with some cool shit. It's like he's
Yeah.
stylish as hell.
You know who I think could be like a really cool, I don't want to say like creative director, but just like spearheading a fashion brand is Drake. I don't know why he doesn't like,
I mean, he's doing the Nocta shit with
I
Nike.
guess that's true.
I don't know
Yeah,
how
but
well that's going.
I'm not really like, I don't know. There's something
It's
about
like track
Nike,
sheets
like,
and track suits
yeah,
and shit. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
not
Nike just seems like, I don't know, it's just like stale to me. Like, I'm a big
yeah,
Nike fan, like with the old shoes and like, I don't know, Air Max 90s always hold like, place in my
yeah.
heart just because like those probably like in my opinion like the best sneakers of all time. But like I don't know. I feel free to disagree with that. I can see it. I can see your wheels turning the
Yeah,
absolute disgust in my
yeah.
bad
No,
taste
that's
in
cool.
shoes.
No,
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 I
not
don't
really
know. I
cool.
don't know why I like them. Maybe
I,
not the best shoes of all time, but I like them.
dude, I had a pair of 90s in college. They're great. But
What's the best
yeah, I don't
shoe?
know. The best shoe.
You're like I have it right here.
I got I got a couple options, and all for varying differences.
All right, most comfortable shoe.
Most comfortable shoe. Probably the one that like whenever I put it on, I'm like, fuck, these are nice. Are the Jordan ones. I think they're just like simple, and you're just like, damn, these are buttery.
Yeah. They're
I
low key
think,
light too. They're not too heavy.
yeah, I love dunks, but I think dunks are like ultimately not that comfortable. I think the dunk silhouette is like sick. Um,
I'm not gonna lie, I think Dunks are the ugliest shoe ever made.
that's valid. That's valid.
I
Dunks
don't
in
know why.
short, dunks in shorts is horrendous. Also, really any high dunk sucks. But I have a bunch of those, so I'm doxing myself. But um, I think Jordan 4s are sweet.
Mm,
I would get another pair of the white Jordan 4s, the pure monies, if I could. But now they're like $400, so I'm not doing
yeah.
that. Uh, yeah. My next purchase is a pair of Jordan 3s. That's what I'm going for. I haven't
What do you
gotten the
think the
threes.
most overrated shoe is? Just call it sneaker because shoe is kind of broad.
Um, Probably any. Honestly, honestly, this is actually that's a good question. The most overrated shoe of all time is any Adidas shoe released between probably 2015 and 2018.
Really?
All of the Ultra Boost stuff, the Alpha Bounce, all of the Yeezy shit of that era, so bad. Like if you go back and look,
Really?
dude, if you go back and look at like the Turtle Dove Yeezys right now, you're just gonna be like, what the fuck is this DH Gate bullshit? Like this is just an AliExpress like version of just a hospital shit. Like, dude, it's so bad. And
They're comfortable though.
I had a pair of Ultra Boosts, and I was like, these are comfortable. And then like I see like if I see a picture of someone wearing an Ultra Boost now, I'm like, oh, like that silhouette is so bad. It's so terrible. I can't believe that that was a time in sneaker fashion was Adidas 2015 to 2018 because they
What about like
cleaned
the
up.
chunkier like 700s or like the foam
Yeah,
runners?
yeah. I mean, those still are pretty bad, but it's like they at least look like shoes. Like they
Yeah.
at least look like shoes that you're like, okay, someone like took time stitching this together. It wasn't just like a
Yeah.
yeah,
They're more
like
purposeful with the
yeah,
design.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like the early like Yeezy 350s literally look like something you get from like a street market. Like it's like they're so ass.
I feel like, to be fair though, like I don't think, I mean,
And
maybe I'm wrong. I'm not really like in the sneaker community, so like I definitely could be wrong. I feel like no one's saying that like those are really good design shoes. You know what I mean?
no,
Like they're
but like
very plain.
back then they were like back then it was like crazy. It's like
Yeah.
they were so nuts. And then it's like people got them and were like, damn, I just look like a fucking jackass wearing these.
Yeah. That's valid. Definitely true.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like in general, shoes, they go through a period of like, they're really hype for a whole host of reasons that they could be really hype. And then the hype dies down a little bit. And then it usually like has this like second resurgence of, like some people who are just kind of like diehard fans of either the celebrity or the brand. And then after
yeah,
that second wave, it kind
it
of,
really dies out.
it really dies down. And then you see kind of where the true, uh, you know, where it's going to end up long term.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. Fashion. I think it's an interesting thing to watch though, as like someone that likes to keep up at least a little bit with music, just like because they're so tied together and like everyone's always looking to artists to create the next trends and to lead the industry and everything. So definitely
yeah.
interesting to watch.
One of my favorite moments of it's probably last week was when Lil Durk went to a basketball game wearing like a Givenchy sweater that just had like a broken skateboard on the front.
Yeah.
It was just like a gray sweater, and it had like a snapped in half skateboard with like one half coming off his chest here, like legit, like coming off of the sweater. And he was
It was
sitting
a legitimate
courtside.
skateboard.
Bro, look up a picture and you're gonna be literally every comment on Twitter was like, bro, this is not it. Like, what the fuck are you wearing? And I was like, that's funny as hell.
That's so
Like,
funny.
bad fits actually might be the best part of the how much fashion and like music are intertwined. It's just seeing bad fits. Like
Is
really,
that the
really expensive bad fits are
is that
hilarious.
the worst fit that you've ever
Art,
seen?
no, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Because like you see people just do outrageous shit like with colors and stuff. Like that's when it gets bad with like colors and patterns and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, a snap in half skateboard on your chest is up there.
Dude, maybe they should get Riff Raff to be the, creative director of the next generation
Dude,
of
Chris Rapp
fashion.
would kill. I would buy anything Riff Raff's design, dude. I rewatched the freestyle of him on Sway in the morning, or at least one of them, and it's the funniest thing in the world. You see him trying to come up with words while he's rapping. He's multiple times just saying absolute gibberish, and he knows it, and he's just like, "Fuck it, I'm the hardest rapper alive."
Yeah. Absolute clown.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have to go,
All right,
but
actually should probably cook dinner. I didn't realize how late it was getting.
it was a pleasure talking though. If
Yeah,
anyone's, stayed around the whole time, follow Aidan on all socials.
yeah, of
Listen
course.
listen to
They've all
some
staying
wild
around till now.
beats. Yeah. No, it was a really good talking to you, and I'm sure we'll
Yeah,
have more to discuss today. We
yeah,
like literally just
yeah.
talked about random
Yeah,
music
we
stuff,
got
and
through like three topics because I kept rambling, and so we
I
got more
mean,
for next time.
yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure, and it was great talking to you.
Yes,
Until next
sir.
time, brother.
Yes, sir. I'll text you soon.